At the peak of his career, the world-famous painter Edvard Munch retreats into his home at Ekeli, just outside Oslo, where he will lead his life in almost total isolation.
Human beings have no shame. Nothing is beneath them.
The life of the painter Edvard Munch starts at Engelhaug Farm in Løten, Hedmark. He was born here on the 12th of December 1863. After his birth, he is so weak that a priest is sent for. Aged only a few hours, he is given the Lord's blessing and christened Edvard after his paternal grandfather. His mother, Laura Katrina Munch, is a beautiful young woman with great artistic talents and is well known for her beautiful embroidery. In later years, when talking about his talent as a painter, Edvard Munch said he had inherited it from his mother's side of the family. Edvard is 1 year old when he and his family moved to Christiania. His father has been appointed Corps Doctor at Army Headquarters, and it is from here Edvard Munch remembers his last walk alone with his mother.
Down the steps it was cold and grey. I held her hand, pulling her along. I could not get outside fast enough. I asked her why she walked so slowly. She paused at every step to draw breath. Once outside the gate, we were dazzled by the daylight. Everything was so bright, so bright.
A few months later, Edvard Munch and his family move again to number 30 Pilestræde. His mother has been suffering from tuberculosis since her youth and has now become very ill. Even so, she managed to give birth to 5 children: Sophie, Edvard, Andreas, Laura, and little Inga. After the last birth, she is so weak that she sends for Edvard and the other children to tell them that she is going to leave them.
We were woken up in the middle of the night, and at once we understood why. We got rest, with sleep still in our eyes. The black-robed stranger stood praying at the foot of her bed. One at a time we went to her bedside, and with a strange look on her face, she kissed us.
His mother writes a farewell letter to her children.
This evening, while I'm sitting alone and feeling tolerably well, I will, despite my frailty, write you a few words. I am often so full of dread that I will come to miss those of you here on earth who have become so close to my heart. If the Lord lets you live, many temptations will come to you. And it will cost greatly to forsake the devil and all his works. Believe in the Lord Jesus, so that you will be blessed, my dear, precious Edvard, so that one day we shall meet in heaven, never to be parted again.
Edvard Munch's mother dies on the 29th of December, at the young age of 31. He and his sister Sophie are standing alone by the window, and no angels come down to fetch them.
Large snowflakes fell endlessly from the sky. With our eyes, we were able to follow one of them all the way down to the ground.
When Edvard is 12 years old, the family moved to Grünerløkka, in the eastern part of Christiania. His mother's sister, Karen Marie Bjelstad, takes over the responsibility for the children. She will become the woman who Edvard Munch will always be able to rely upon. Christian Munch asks her to marry him, but she refuses. Even so, she will loyally remain at Christian Munch's side for the next 21 years. Aunt Karen is the one who teaches the children how to draw. The stories they draw are about a world far away from Grünerløkka. Edvard also draws humorous pictures. Here is one about the doctor who becomes a little too curious about his waiting patients. Christian Munch's life is filled with periods of deep depression, brought on by feelings of guilt that he, as a doctor, was unable to save his wife's life.
I learned very early about the endless torture that awaited a child of sin. When he wasn't having his bouts of religious obsession, he would joke and play with us and tell us stories. It was therefore twice as hard to bear when he punished us. My sister was 15 years old. One day I heard the young Peterson address my sister Sophie as Miss. When we mimicked him, my sister blushed. Now she blushes every time we mention his name.
In the autumn of 1877, his sister Sophie is struck down by a severe case of tuberculosis.
It was evening. Sophie lay red and burning with fever in her bed. She was hallucinating. Father and Auntie Karen carefully lifted her up and sat her in a chair. A large pillow was placed behind her head and a thick rug over her lap. "I would so like to live," she whispered. "It's so nice here." And then she quietly died.
The following year, Edvard Munch begins studying at the technical school in Christiania. He wants to be an architect, but he leaves after only 1 year. Now the only thing that fills the boy's mind is drawing, and so he enrolls at the Royal College of Art. In the autumn of 1882, Edvard Munch rents a studio together with some friends close to the town centre. Christian Krogh the painter gives him free tuition. Krogh has noticed this gifted boy, who at the age of 16 wrote in his diary,
"I have now made up my mind to become a painter."
When Edvard Munch is 20, he meets the author Hans Jäger, a self-proclaimed leader of Christiania's set of intellectual and scandal-seeking bohemians. Jäger believes that it is Christianity which is the root of all evil, and that the sexual instinct is the only thing that makes life worth living. The Bohemians have written their own version of the Ten Commandments, the first one being, "Thou shalt write thine own life." The third one, "Thou cannot treat thy parents badly enough." And the last one, "Thou shalt kill thyself." Edvard Munch's encounter with the Bohemians is for him a turning point.
Jäger. He's tough. Do you know what he said? Kill him. My father. The kind-hearted man. I could not understand Jäger. I could love Jäger, but also hate him. It was my friendship with Jäger that was the hardest thing for my father to accept.
The painter Fritz Taulov, Christian Munch's cousin, discovers young Edvard's talent and finances a trip to Paris and Antwerp so Edvard can experience European art for himself. Fritz Taulov is also the brother-in-law of the woman who will become Edvard Munch's driving force as a painter and female subject in some of his greatest paintings. In Oskarstrand, Edvard Munch falls deeply in love with Millie Taulov, the wife of Dr. Karl Taulov, a captain in the Army Medical Corps. During the summer, they begin to meet one another in secret.
I have so many dreams, and I walk around in my sleep. What would you say if I came to you?
But what about your husband?
He won't interfere. I have my own free will in everything.
While gazing into your eyes, I felt an invisible cord appear from your eyes and thread its way deep into mine, binding our hearts together.
On his return to Christiania, Edvard Munch rents a studio in Hausmannsgate, where he continues to secretly meet Millie throughout the autumn. One day she never came. Whispers through the grapevine say she has found a new lover.
She has made such a deep impression on my mind that no other image can drive it completely away. Was it because I gave her my first kiss? Was it because she lied to me, was unfaithful, that I now envisage my life before me with horror? But that pleasure she shall never have, that she has destroyed me. No, she will see me more high-spirited than ever. I shall work. She shall see my name in the newspapers. People are going to talk about me.
It is now Edvard Munch paints his remembrance of his sister Sophie's death, a picture that has been accepted for the autumn exhibition, a picture the world has never seen the like of. Edvard Munch is now 23 years old.
On opening day, when I walked into the gallery, a crowd of people were standing in front of the picture, and I heard them laughing in disbelief.
like minced fish in a lobster sauce. As the study is now, it's nothing more than a scrapped half-completed sketch which has been aborted. It's a scandal that such a thing is allowed to hang here.
Hans Jaeger and the painter Christian Krog stand firm in the face of all the bad critics and defend Edvard Munch. However, what hurts Edvard the most is that his father has to bear the newspapers' raging attacks about his immorality. But as always, his Aunt Karen is there to give him moral support.
Just as I believe in God, I believe in you as an artist.
At the age of 26, he is given a 2-year art grant from the state, on the one condition that he studies. So Edvard Munch leaves for the art metropolis of Paris, where he is accepted as a pupil by the well-known painter and teacher Léon Bonnard, and throughout the autumn he works on portraits and painting nudes, and it does not take long before he becomes Bonnard's best pupil.
With my pencil I measure the body proportions of the naked model who is standing in the middle of the studio. How many heads can we put on the body? How wide is the breast in relation to the rest of the body? It bores me, tires me, and it makes me numb.
One day while he is in the studio, a letter arrives from his Aunt Karen. His father has died from a stroke.
It's like a dream. It's almost impossible to comprehend it all. That Papa is now reunited with your mother and Sophie, and can see how deep our grief is. Andreas, the little girls, and I take refuge in God's word, as we can find no peace elsewhere.
When the letter about his father's death was later found, it was plain to see that he had been carrying it, as the paper was all worn and the ink had almost faded away.
There were so many little things that I remembered. Small incidents which plagued me. Words that had hurt. I had been as cold as ice when he was meek and had desired reconciliation. He came home after being away for a long time. He produced a bottle of wine. This is for you. We shall drink it together. I answered indifferently that it's only ordinary champagne, and I don't know if I like it. I wouldn't drink with him. I could see his disappointment.
After his father's death, Edvard Munch remains in Paris. Laden with feelings of guilt, he locks himself in his room, and here, with a view over the Seine, he paints the picture Night in St. Cloud.
Moi, je veux qu'on vienne chez moi. Vous n'êtes encore jamais venu chez moi.
La rigueur, peut-être c'est fini.
On s'est pas disputé quand même. Ça y est, parce que...
Non, mais non. Tu as trouvé le truc, c'est qui là?
Arrêtez, c'est pas possible. C'est pas parce que Francis est mort qu'il va nous faire un...
He goes to the Montagne Ris, in the boulevard de Capucine, to look at the people there, the ones he does not know. It is a silent space between them that he wants to explore. This is what he will paint.
I shall form this like I now see it, but in the blue haze. I shall depict a series of such pictures. They shall be living people who breathe, feel, suffer, and love. People shall be able to comprehend the holiness of this, and they will take off their hats, as though they were in a church.
Edvard Munch is now in desperate need of money, as his grant has been delayed. Weak from fever and bronchitis, he travels south to Nice. Once again, it is his aunt who comes to his rescue, using money she gets for selling miniature pictures she has made herself. He travels to Monte Carlo in the hope of winning some money.
It is 14 days since I first arrived in Monte Carlo's scented rooms. I have won and lost. Yesterday I lost badly.
When Edvard Munch is awarded a state grant for the third year in succession, the playwright Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson wrote in a newspaper article that the grant is no fund for the sick. The money should be given to artists who are able to benefit from it.
A couple of days ago I read for the first time your highly strange account concerning the artist's grants. There is nothing wrong with my health, and if you give a painter a grant, then you must leave it up to him to choose his place of residence.
And it is in the Mediterranean where he paints the first draft of the picture, which will become his most famous. Edvard Munch recalls an evening at home in Christiania.
I was walking along a road. The city and the fjord lay below me. I felt tired and ill. I looked out across the fjord. The sun was setting. The clouds were dyed as red as blood. I felt a scream pass through nature. I thought I heard a scream. I painted this picture.
On the 4th of October 1892, Edvard Munch receives a highly unusual invitation for such a young and controversial artist. He is invited to hold his first one-man exhibition in Berlin. Edvard Munch is very enthusiastic, and 1 month later he exhibits 55 pictures in the Verein Berliner Künstler. The exhibition, however, turns into the greatest scandal to hit the art metropolis of Berlin for many years. The press, the art world's elite, and the public react with horror and disgust. The pictures are described as a work of a madman, and the exhibition is closed after only 1 week. Now, the name Edvard Munch is on everyone's lips.
The exhibition awakens great offense. Here is an overflow of awful old painters who are furious over the new trend. I expect you will only get to see the bad critics. The right-wing magazines will see to that.
In the Berlin taverns Am Schwarzen Ferkel, he is received as a hero by the circle of radical authors, philosophers, poets and regulars. This circle includes such personalities as August Strindberg, Gustav Vigeland, Stanislaw Szywiecki and Sigbjørn Obstfelder. During the winter, a new woman appears in Edvard Munch's life. Norwegian doctor's daughter Dagny Juel has come to Berlin to study music. At the Zum Schwarzen Ferkel, she sets the men's passions alight. Edvard Munch's relationship with her is a short one, but afterwards, a dramatic threesome develops between Strindberg, the Polish poet Stanislaw Szybieszewski, and Dagny Juel. A few months later, Dagny Juel marries Szybieszewski. Strindberg comes to hate her. Even so, it is Szybieszewski who in 1901 plans Dagny's murder. In Tbilisi, he arranges her lover to shoot her. Then her lover kills himself. Inspired by Strindberg and the other authors, Edvard Munch begins to use his own diaries and notes for his art. He wants to paint a series of pictures that captures life itself. Never again will he paint as many pictures during the space of 1 year. It is Christmas 1895. A message arrives from Christiania. His brother Andreas, who is only 30 years old, has died from pneumonia. Andreas is the only one of his brothers and sisters who marries and has children, but he dies 2 months before his daughter Andrea is born. The family is hit by yet another tragedy. Laura, Edvard Munch's sister, is diagnosed as suffering from hysteria. She is admitted into a Christiania mental hospital.
I have inherited two of man's greatest enemies, the heritage of tuberculosis and the heritage of mental illness. I see people behind their masks, calm, smiling faces, pale corpses, appearing like souls hurrying along a winding path, which is leading them towards their graves.
In Christiania, Edvard Munch falls in love with Tulla Larsen, the daughter of a wine merchant and Christiania's wealthiest man. They embark on a relationship that they will never be able to end. He woos her intensely, and she is possessed by him.
I shall be eternally grateful if you let me meet you.
Thank you so much for your letters. You can understand that I love you. And that's the problem. I don't feel that I am here to care for someone, or that someone can care for me.
Each time I gave myself in love to you, as if it was the first time.
I believe my only purpose is to paint pictures, and I'm now convinced that I must choose between love and my work. Marriage. It will be like binding myself to hell for the rest of my life. And she has the money. What power. A hell worse than now. Dear Tulla, if we become formally married, let this letter be your guide. If we live together, it will be as brother and sister, Then, at last, you might possibly learn to love me as my sister. And then I might be able to fall in love with you.
Tulla Larsson accepts his conditions and arranges the formalities. The marriage is imminent on a number of occasions, but each time Edvard Munch loses the marriage papers.
I've lost both papers. It's strange, since I don't normally lose my documents. But there really is no hurry.
While still on the run from Tulla Larsson, he rents a studio in Berlin, where he paints Sin and the red-haired nude. In the spring of 1902, he holds an exhibition of his pictures in Berlin. This exhibition is better received than his earlier ones, and his financial situation now appears to be improving at last. At his studio in Lutzowstrasse, he takes his first photographs. Photography will now become an important aid for his work.
The camera will never be able to compete with the brush and palette, as long as it cannot be used in heaven or hell.
Tulla Larsson comes to visit Edvard at his new house in Åsgårdstrand, after she has tried to commit suicide with morphine. During this summer he is involved in a lot of drinking and fighting.
I have bought myself a revolver, and I find it amusing to fire it in the kitchen. This shiny weapon with the lead bullets. What good is all the philosophy in the world against this? When the little bullet penetrates the heart, one is dead.
The bullet enters the middle finger of Edvard Munch's left hand, forcing him to seek medical attention. A written account in the Rikshospital's journal records how Edvard Munch demands the use of cocaine as a local anesthetic, so he can witness the operation. Tulla Larsson leaves for Paris together with her new lover, where she joins up with Edvard Munch's former teacher Christian Krogh and the journalist Gunnar Heiberg.
It was through a friend that I heard she was spreading terrible rumors about me, that I had lived off her, used her money, and deserted her like a scoundrel. Christian Krogh used to be a great guy, a real dandy. Now he is a slimy, soft-horned snail who carries a brothel on his back. My enemies, that rotten clique of literates and drunken rich kids. And so, once again, my thoughts returned to... She danced on my sickbed, threw her arms around my friends and my enemies, spat at me, and insulted me. She had a group of friends who were always there to help her. These became my executioners. I will never come back to Christiania. I will never set foot in Christiania again. My enemy's town. Even in Paris, she spreads her poison. She and the disgusting Krogh and Heiberg. Afterwards, I heard many things about her wild lifestyle, and she talked about me to my friends, claiming that I had used her money. She made one Romanian so angry that he wanted to assassinate me, and for years she tormented the lives of my aunt and my sister. Got a gun, loaded it, aimed it out of the window. Everyone stared at me in horror, and once again I had made a mistake. I thought, another attack.
It is a man with a reputation who gets off the train in Copenhagen to hold an exhibition of his work in the autumn of 1904. Every evening he drinks himself unconscious. Of all his many turbulent episodes, it is 2 fights with the author Andreas Hauckland which make the biggest headlines.
Dear aunt, a slight incident has surely worried you. It's not as dangerous as it might sound. It was only a drunken man who was unpleasant and got fined.
Even Aunt Karen believes Edvard Munch has gone too far now.
We really do think it was wrong of you to hit him from behind. But he had offended you, hadn't he? But please don't fight again.
It is a run-down Edvard Munch, who in the summer of 1907 travels to Warnemünde, a German resort on the Baltic Sea. He rents a house here so he can work and sort himself out. On the beach in dazzling sunlight, he paints a picture that expresses manhood and the force of life. His naked models cause consternation, and once again he finds himself on the front pages of the newspapers, accused of being immoral. He is now convinced that he is being persecuted, and in the end he flees to Copenhagen.
It is as if something heavy is filling my body, right up to my heart. The most sensitive nerves are stricken, the most fragile one attacked.
The final crisis transpires in Copenhagen. After 3 days of heavy drinking, he checks into a small hotel.
I checked into 2 rooms on the 2nd floor. It is safer to have 2 rooms. The night came, and I heard someone in the street talking loudly about me. There he is. Watch him. Yes, now we have him. Do you have a revolver? I walked from the window into the other room and heard the voices again.
Kill him.
On the 3rd of October 1908, he is admitted to the Dr. Jacobsen Clinic in Copenhagen for his nervous disposition and high consumption of alcohol.
As you all know, I have admitted myself into a sanatorium. where I hope to rid myself of this insufferable inner turmoil which has plagued me since the episode with Tulla Larsen. This is something I should have done a long time ago, so that I could have spared myself, you, and many others of this unpleasantness. I am given electric treatment and massage and find myself at peace here.
While he is at the clinic, an official communique arrives from Norway, appointing him a Knight of the Royal Norwegian Order of St. Olav for services to art. At the same time, his old friend and advocate Jens Thies is appointed director of the National Gallery, which now purchases a number of Munch's major works. Edvard Munch turns his room into a studio where he draws and paints, and organizes exhibitions. He paints Dr. Jakobsen, the doctor who has been treating him since his breakdown.
Now I wanted to decide a little, and I persuaded him to sit for me. I portrayed the large man quaking in a fire with all the colors of hell, begging for mercy as he became as tame as a dove.
In May 1909, he returns home to Norway, along with his friend and relative Ludvig Ravensberg. It is an elated Edvard Munch who now talks without interruption on the boat. He has decided to cut out alcohol, cigarettes and women.
I have joined the order of Don't Indulge. Alcohol-free drinks, nicotine-free cigarettes, poison-free women, neither married or unmarried.
Edvard Munch settles in Kragerø, where he will paint both the light and the sun. Public opinion is now beginning to change. Acknowledgement of his contribution and importance to European art finally comes in 1912, when he is invited to exhibit together with Van Gogh, Cézanne and Gauguin in Cologne.
I almost feel embarrassed to have been given so much space.
After a lot of opposition, Edvard Munch is finally allowed to take part in the competition to decorate the University of Oslo's Festival Hall, but neither he nor any other artist is acclaimed the winner, Christian Krogh being one of Munch's biggest critics. The Festival Hall is instead decorated with silk tapestries. With the help of a private donation, Munch's decorations are finally able to adorn the Festival Hall. Edvard Munch is never awarded any public artistic assignments in Norway. In 1916, Edvard Munch buys the property at Ekeli, just outside Oslo, where he designs and builds himself a large studio, so that he has enough space to work and enough room for all his pictures. This is where he will live for the remaining 27 years of his life. He is now acknowledged as one of Europe's greatest painters. Now everyone wants to buy his pictures. Edvard Munch becomes one of Oslo's richest men, and one year he writes in his tax returns that none of his money should be used to build Vigeland's park, as he is furious at all the attention which Vigeland is being given. Even though he is now a rich man, fame has come too late. He just wants to be left alone with his pictures. He seldom leaves home to pay anyone a visit, not even to his Aunt Karen, although they still continue to ring one another and write each other letters.
My telephone has been inundated by the most unpleasant people who wish to tear my paintings from me with the help of Mammon. Oh, they come crawling now, but it is too late. My pictures are not for sale. I need them for my own development.
At the age of 67, he takes a set of self-portrait photos at Ekeli. His eyes have become infected with an eye disease, and he fears that he will no longer be able to continue painting. In May 1931, Aunt Karen dies, at the age of 91. Edvard Munch watches the funeral procession leave the church and go to the gravesite at Nordstrand, but he cannot endure visiting the grave. His sister Inga writes in a letter,
I saw you there. Your wreath was greatly admired. How strange it is that you have become as strong as you are, when you were so weak as a child.
I have, through the years, become more and more unsuited to mixing with people, even with my best friends. Imagine, I haven't attended a social gathering for 6 years. I have only my pictures. Without them, I am nothing.
Munch paints one of his last pictures. It is a self-portrait.
Tell me, was death terrible when you knew that you had a quarter of an hour left? A quarter of an hour is a long time, he answered. When you know that you have a quarter of an hour left.
On the 23rd of February 1944, Edvard Munch dies at Ekeli. He is 80 years old. He leaves 1,100 paintings, 18,000 graphic prints, and his literary manuscripts to the city of Oslo. He is alone when he dies, and when they arrive to fetch him, the gate has rusted shut.